everyone, and welcome to this panel. It's a pleasure to have you here. We're going to be talking about really some what I would call the large moral and ethical issues right now in the hemp and cannabis industries, and we're going to hear from some of the top experts really in the field and in some cases in the world on these topics. So if you're kind of sitting around on the periphery, please do come in. No conversations because I know we do have the show going on behind us, but again, thank you for being here. I'm going to kick it off. My name is Sean Murphy. I was the founder of Hemp Business Journal. I sold Hemp Business Journal in 2018 to New Frontier Data and have since been, to put it simply, fighting for my son, Atlas, in courts and really with Children's Hospital Colorado to help him have access to CBD. How it has come to that is a long story. We're not going to get into it too much today. We're going to hear more from Dr. Uma and her thoughts on how it's gotten as messed up as it is and what we can do about it. And we'll go from there. So next down the line, I'm going to pass the microphone to Dr. Uma Dhanabalan, and she's going to tell you who she is.
Sean, thank you very much, and I want to thank everybody and for Morris Beagle for who brought Sean and me together. I'm Dr. Uma Dhanabalan, and I'm a physician. I'm an occupational environmental medicine physician, and very proud to say a diplomat and certified in cannabinoid medicine, and have been writing recommendations for medical cannabis since 2012, initially in Washington and now in Massachusetts. And I'm also licensed to write recommendations for Maine, Connecticut, New Hampshire, Vermont, Georgia, and the state of Washington. I'm very proud to be here, and this is about understanding that I want to change the stigma regarding cannabis and for the world to know about a system that I knew nothing about, which is known as the endocannabinoid system. And this is very, very important because the endocannabinoid system must be known to everybody. That's the only way we're going to change the stigma, and I'm doing it through education. So thank you very much for all of you for being here today.
It's such a great pleasure for me to meet Dr. Uma several years ago in Washington State, an incredible force. My name is Joy Beckerman. I'm the founder and principal of Hemp International, which is a Seattle-based legal support consulting and expert witness firm serving the global community. I'm the president of the Center for the Study of Cannabis and Social Policy, sit on the board of directors for the International Normal Women's Alliance, and proudly serve on the board of directors for the U.S. Hemp Roundtable and their Minority Empowerment Committee. I've been in hemp for somewhere around 30 years, and I'm very excited to be a part of this panel so that we can discuss the drug felon ban within the Farm Bill and discrimination in minority farming. And when we talk about minorities, we mean Black, Indigenous, Hispanic or Latinx community, and the discriminatory practices that they face, and what this means for equity in industry participation for those farmers and those farmers suffering from the drug felon ban and its unintended consequences, or intended as it may be.
Good afternoon. My name is Quentin Robinson. I'm a practicing lawyer. I specialize in the area of agricultural law. I am the general counsel for Purple Peace and Partners. I work with Jesse Johnson very closely, and my background is obviously in agricultural law. I spent about 5 years on the House Agriculture Committee as an assistant counsel. I worked 7 years with the Obama administration with the Department of Agriculture, and now I practice law in the area of agricultural credit discrimination and just a host of other ag-related litigation matters. So I'm very happy to be on this panel today.
Very good to have you here, Quentin and Joy and Dr. Uma. Everyone, we're going to get into 3 topics. I'm going to set the stage here, and then we're going to go through them one by one to help you really see what we're getting at and then where we go from here. The first issue, and it really revolves around the Schedule I nature of marijuana, is going to be about medical cannabis research. How we've come to this place in the country where we're being told we need to do research to remove marijuana from Schedule I, but how Schedule I makes it virtually impossible to do medical cannabis research. It's this crazy negative feedback loop that we're stuck in. The second one, I know the title on the panel is expungement, but I call it freeing plant prisoners. And Joy is going to get into that and discuss that with both Dr. Uma and Quentin, and then they're also going to get into the third issue, which is really minority empowerment. What are we doing with minorities? And really some of the wrongs that have happened, but what are some of the rights that we can focus on and things that we can start doing? So we have the three issues: medical cannabis research, freeing plant prisoners, and minority farming empowerment. We're going to start with medical cannabis research. And to get there, I'm going to lay this up for Dr. Uma, but the background is I have a son, his name is Atlas. He has a terminal brain disease called Alexander's disease. We live in Colorado, and yet it's really hard to explain, it's complicated, but he doesn't have access to CBD, everyone. You think, how's that possible in Colorado? Well, it's because I'm divorced to Atlas's mother. She doesn't want Atlas to have CBD. Children's Hospital Colorado has a no recommendation policy, which is based on Schedule 1. Schedule 1 says marijuana, no medical benefit, highly addictive, not going there. And Children's isn't going to go there, so they cannot make the recommendation. So we're in this situation where my little guy Atlas has a terminal brain disease. World-renowned docs are saying it's oxidative stress is the main issue, and we know that cannabinoids can help provide neural protection. Like, we know it. It's not a question, right? We know it. It's in the science. It's in the research. So they'll say, more research is needed, Sean. More research is needed. So I brought Dr. Uma into play, and she was going to testify in trial 2 weeks ago, and Colorado said, no, we're going to strike her as a witness. They did not let Dr. Uma testify. We don't have the rulings from that. We don't know if Atlas is going to have access or not, but I wanted you to hear from Dr. Uma, everyone, about what is the driver of this issue? Like, what is the problem, and why are we where we are? We want to hear about it from a medical doctor, not just from a parent like me who's up here fighting for my child, but from a doctor who's looked at this situation and can weigh in from that medical point. So with that, Dr. Uma, like, what do you make of this? Like, why are we in this situation?
First of all, it's very sad to hear this story and the fact that I was not able to testify, because the facts have to be told. And at the end of the day, all patients are not healthcare providers, but all healthcare providers are patients. And I want that message to be heard clearly, that one day these people that are not standing up for this issue are going to have to stand up for their own health issue. And that's what I want everybody to understand. You got one body and one life. And you should have the right to what you want. And you should also have the right as a parent to know that you can advocate for your child or the people that you care for as a caregiver. And I'm appalled and disappointed that my colleagues at Children's Hospital did not have a backbone to stand up for this child and say, we as clinicians write prescriptions for off-label use for many, many medications that are out there, and that has gone on for FDA-approved drugs. Why has Children's Hospital not at least offered that to Atlas? Number two, CBD is available over the counter everywhere. Why is that not being recommended, even if they have a hospital policy? And as far as the facts go, cannabis is in Schedule 1, meaning that there's no medical use, no medical research, and potential for abuse. Number one, nobody in the whole world has ever died from this plant, and you cannot. Fact number two, the government has the patent number 6630507. I'll repeat that again. 6630507, issued on October 7, 2003. And it clearly states cannabinoids as an antioxidant and neuroprotectant, folks. Neuroprotectant, not neurotoxic. They know the facts. It's been used for preventative maintenance and treatment of Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, and can be used for seizures. Fact number three, it was prescribed, and it was in the United States Pharmacopoeia from 1850 to 1942. And one of the indications was in seizures, opioid addiction, alcoholism, insanity. Treatment of, folks, not the cause of. So let's get the facts right so that all of you know what the facts are and that you can present it to your healthcare providers. Hospitals get a paycheck from the federal government. There's a conflict of interest when hospitals have to make your decision for your rights and for your children's rights. So please know your rights and And that's what this is about. You got one body, one life, and you got one child if that's all you got. And those are the parents that should have the rights to make the decisions. And hospitals need to step away and let people have their rights. Thank you.
It's getting a little bit teary-eyed there because it's very personal, everyone. Those that have seen me speak, I spoke about data, economics, where markets were going, and charts, and with Atlas, it just became so personal. It became so personal that my child couldn't have access to CBD in Colorado. So Dr. Uma was going to come out, the Denver District Court, they struck her. They're like, no, technicality, she's not going to testify. So we're really doing it here. That's why there's some passion to this. But the issue has been the Schedule I status of marijuana, and it lumps in the issue with hemp because we don't have the FDA regulating CBD as a dietary supplement. They didn't do that, and it just goes on down the line. So this one is about a child, Atlas, but really it's about medical freedom, right? And it's about quality of life. Many of us have kids, our parents, aging parents, that they're looking for quality of life. And hemp-derived products and medical cannabis provide that quality of life. It's not a mystery. The research has been done. The realm of caring and John Hopkins put out some great research that this increases and improves quality of life. So I just want to ask Dr. Uma one more question to talk about that quality of life and really the endocannabinoid system, the system that we all have, and her opinion on that as a medical doctor. And then we'll move on down the line and hear from Joy and Quentin. So with that, can you tell us about the endocannabinoid system, Doctor?
I want people to understand, I am a physician that had a lot of training, including Harvard. Nowhere in my years of education did I ever learn about the endocannabinoid system. And this became personal to me too, Sean, because I did not stand up for my mother who was dying from idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis. And it was her that saw a TV program about how cannabis was being used in Israel for COPD, asthma, lung cancer, and PTSD. And that's when I started to learn about the endocannabinoid system, but I kept my mouth shut because of the stigma. After my mother died, my mission began that I have to know about this and teach it. The endocannabinoid system, folks, is a mere 600 million years old. Not something that we just found out about. It's 600 million years old. It's evolved from a sea squirt to what we have in humans today. And this system is involved with every other system. It helps people conceive to helping you die. That's what this whole system is about. And understanding that cannabis, yes, cannabis works with the endocannabinoid system. The first endocannabinoid that was identified was called anandamide in 1992 by Dr. Raphael Bishulam. Anandamide is a molecule that a baby receives in its first drop of breast milk. That molecule mimics THC, the intoxicating component, but it's one cannabinoid that mimics anandamide, and that's what works with the CB1 and CB2 receptors. CB1 is primarily in the brain, identified in 1988. CB2 primarily in the immune system. But there's many more receptors that we've identified. And what's important is that we've identified over 150 cannabinoids to date. The cannabis plant has cannabinoids, flavonoids, terpenoids. That's what gives it the aroma. The flavonoids is what gives it the beautiful colors. And all of these work with this system known as the endocannabinoid system. This must be taught to every one of us. You must be able to go talk to your healthcare providers and say, what do you know about the endocannabinoid system? And if they don't know, educate them. And that's what this is about, and about one's quality of life. I call cannabis the exit drug. I'm very proud to say I haven't written an opioid in over 15 years. How many other doctors can say that today? And I call it the exit drug because it helps people get off of opioids, narcotics, alcohol, nicotine. And it's palliative care, folks. It's about quality of life, and this child deserves that. And so does every one of us here. And it is about quality of life and palliative care. So please understand that, and please understand that your endocannabinoid system. So please, open your hearts, you don't need to use this medicine, but you know somebody that can benefit from it. Open your minds, because we all have an endocannabinoid system. And this is going to open doors for better relationships and better relationships of our healthcare as well. God bless everybody.
So, thank you guys. Just trying to collect my thoughts. I usually have all the data, all the charts, everything to go through everybody in terms of education. But as I was just thinking about that, with Hemp Business Journal, the one thing we always worked towards was to educate and inform and provide data and intel so everyone could understand where the market was going. And it was a big success when we passed the 2018 federal farm bill and hemp became fully federally legal. It was the realization of 6-7 years of work for me, seeing the data from Hemp Business Journal in the USDA interim final rule, and it was like, hey, we did it. I never realized that the big issue would come down to cannabis legalization. I fought so hard at hemp. I was always like, I'm the hemp guy. I'm not going to get into all the marijuana talk. I'm the hemp guy. But to see it come back now to federal legalization, we were told by the current administration, we're going to legalize cannabis. But nothing really has happened. It's been a stalemate so far, and it's going to continue to be a stalemate, I think, in Congress on the big issues. Legalizing cannabis, which means either rescheduling or descheduling, and then regulating CBD or hemp-derived cannabinoids so that we can have access to this market, because there's a lot of issues right now with the FDA not regulating CBD. So those are the two big things we're asking for and we're pushing for and we care about, because they're the macro things. They're not immediately going to help little Atlas, my son, have access to CBD, but they're going to change the course of American history. That's what they're going to do, giving access to everyone for quality of life, right? So that you can have a little bit of THC if you're feeling anxiety and you need a little bit of help to get through it, especially if you have a parent, maybe it's like a veteran or somebody. I've been a hospice volunteer in the VA, somebody who needs a little bit of THC, right, to take the edge off. Or maybe it's someone who doesn't want any THC, so that's hemp and cannabinoids. So we think
maybe it's someone who chooses they want to enjoy as an adult.
Yeah, so I think it was a long way of saying, I want to get back to the one point. Yeah, the one point is really, we keep hearing we need more research, right? That's what the medical establishment says. Whoa, it's not the Schedule 1, it's that we need more research, but we're saying we can't do more research because it's Schedule 1. So that's our big point in terms of education, is what is the research that we should be doing, we can be doing, and to allow access to that. Because I know if we take marijuana off Schedule 1 and make it Schedule 3 or deschedule, the research floodgates will open, right? They will open wide. We don't know what we don't even know about this plant, but we know the basics that it helps with quality of life. So thanks for listening to me talk about all that. That's 10 years in the hemp industry and having a child like Atlas coming out where I'm like, I know the key issues. So I'm thinking about running for Congress in Wyoming because I know it's going to take Republican votes to pass cannabis legislation. It's not going to legalize unless Congress does it. FDA's not going to save anybody on this. They're married to the pharmaceutical industry. We know that. It's no surprise, right? So those are the big issues. And I want to just kind of ask Dr. Uma one last question so you guys can hear how this plays out in reality. And that's with Atlas, because he doesn't have access to cannabinoids, he's on course to have seizures. That's what happens with his brain, with his disease. The brain degenerates. When the brain degenerates, you have seizures, right? It's part of having this terminal brain disease. So as that happens, you can't have a neuroprotectant, right? CBD, no, we can't do that because they're not allowing access, but he'll have Keppra or Depakote. Those are the two primary anti-seizure drugs. And they have really bad side effects. Anybody familiar with Keppra and Depakote? Right, they stop seizures, but there's also something that parents like me or Janelle Ralph know called Keppra rage. That doesn't sound very good. That's because kids bang their heads into walls and go crazy on Keppra.
My kid had to wear a helmet.
He had to wear a helmet. Her child had to wear a helmet because of these drugs. So that's the alternative path for someone like Atlas because he doesn't have access. He'll have that. So I want to ask Dr. Uma, given that we know that's the trajectory, what should we be thinking, or what can we do, both those of us that can have access right now, but those like Atlas and those that live in states where access is limited, what can we be doing knowing that our only alternative are opiates or heavy pharmaceuticals?
Thank you very much for that question. The one thing that I want to come back to is this expungement issue. This expungement issue is really about mental health issues. Just like Sean is suffering with a mental health issue of his own kind, what we're seeing is that people are all suffering, especially right now with COVID. Everybody has PTS, and I dropped the D, folks. We're not disorders or we ain't diseases. It's post-traumatic stress. And it is about having a choice. And what I really believe is that parents have to do what they have to do. And parents have done that. They've taken their child and given their medications and said, come, go do what you need to do. And I'm doing the same thing when I decided to write recommendations. I said, really, come get my license. Because I'm not killing anybody. I mean, if you could say that with any other drug. And what the other point about it is that cannabis not only is a neuroprotectant, we're talking about Atlas's, in his case, is his quality of life. He's not eating, he's not progressing, he's going to have all the difficulties. With patients that suffer with expungement issues on the same end, they're not able to get their food and their families what they need because they have this expungement hanging on their head. And it is a mental health issue. And what we saw from the expungement event that we just did was that we didn't have as many people. We had 6 people show up. And what we realized is that we're not reaching the people. And that's the commonality. We're not reaching the people that are making the decisions. If the healthcare providers are going to make the decisions of what we can have, they need to know all the information. If the courts are going to make the decisions on who can be expunged, then why are we just waving a wand and getting everybody expunged? Why do we have to make people go through more hoops? I asked that question. You've already got a list of people that have these convictions. One wave, click it and be done, and send them a notice and say you're done. And state by state, this doesn't have to be recreated. And it is a mental health issue because we are facing an opioid epidemic, just like they're willing to give Hemp or Depakote or give an Oxy for pain or an Ambien. We're not considering even starting out with a little bit of CBD and adding a little THC. And we're not going to hurt them or kill them, folks. I can't say that about Hemp or Depakote or Oxy or any of those other medications out there. My youngest in my clinic is 2. My eldest is 98. And many of my seniors are leading independent lives. They drive their car, they take care of themselves. Their grandparents, their great-grandparents, and their caregivers. And they're providing to the society. That's what I want for me and for every one of you out there. And we need to continue this. And it's through education and it's through events like this and each of you. My philosophy is reach 1, teach 10, teach 1, reach 10. So as you learn it, go share the information and ask the questions.